and personal business aspects of the sport, but he never lost his love for the game that to him always meant an afternoon of good fun. And when the University of California hired him as head coach in 1982, they discovered that their gray-haired alumnus still had the enthusiasm of a young boy tossing a football in a lettuce field.
Even in the scholarly setting of the University of California, Joe Kapp, the coach, like Joe Kapp, the player, is not comfortable with plays diagrammed on paper.
Clock does not start until it is touched by the opposition. Here it is. That is Moan. He pitches it out to Rogers. That's going to take care of the clock, so they got to score here. This is Garner. My goodness, Rogers is still alive. Stanford players on the field. Oh, what's going on here? Markers down. This is incredible. Moan is going to score. They signal touchdown.
That is a touchdown. That penalty markers on the Stanford players for going onto the football field.
California has won it. This is the most incredible finish I have ever seen in a football game.
Some of my old coaches, I can think of old Stout Steve Owens saying, it's supposed to be fun for the players, supposed to be fun for the fans, and if coaches take themselves too seriously, then and just concentrate on the X's and O's and the organizational part of it, then something is lost.
To Joe Kapp, football was always a matter of fun and chance. Above all, it was a game of challenge, where spontaneity netted better results than playbook planning. This California native with Mexican roots often turned a football field into a bull ring. Although in him, there ran the blood of the bull, not the matador.
He's the only offensive player I ever met, a quarterback who would attack defensive players. I mean, you would charge at him, didn't have to run, would.
Some form of challenge is necessary on every play that you play. And if you don't come up to that line of scrimmage as a quarterback ready to challenge that defense, they're going to eat you up.
I think it was against the Rams. I think it was sometime he was mad at some player over there. I think he's number 58 or one of the linebackers. So Joe gets under center and he goes, set, hot one, hot two, you 58. So, yeah, Joe is fun to play with.
Joe Kapp always managed to mix laughter with victory. He led California to its last Rose Bowl in 1959, before going on to win the Canadian Football League's Grey Cup championship. With Bud Grant, he came to a losing Viking franchise in 1967. There, his sense of humor was sorely tested. Viking fans held their breath every time he lofted the football. His passes had nothing more on them than the commissioner's signature. But more often than not, they were caught. And the Vikings found a leader in this gutsy quarterback who never ducked a linebacker's punch on the field or off it.
Lonnie Warwick and Joe Kapp got in a real fight one night after a ball game. After we lost to the Green Bay Packers, Lonnie was saying it was the defense's fault, and Joe said no, it was the offense's fault, and they got to a fisticuffs about the thing.
So we break it up, and pretty soon they sneak out. Well, there's a fence there, a wooden fence around the yard, so to make sure no one got hurt, the rule was that one stayed on one side of the fence and the other stayed on the other side of the fence. So they just had a little fence in between them, and they just went toe-to-toe with the fence in between them and knocked the hell out of each other.
He was not your typical kind of quarterback. You know, he was ready to give his all in all situations. And that's what I think we rallied behind.
In 1969, Kapp rallied the Vikings to a come-from-behind win over the Rams for their first ever playoff victory. 1 week later, he personally crushed Cleveland for the NFL title. A game best remembered for the indelible mark Kapp left on the Browns' defense.
Take it.
Way to stick it in there, Joe! Better run him, Joe!
It is rare when one player's invincible will motivates a team to victory. It is rarer still when that same man's humble humanity inspires a team to a sense of brotherhood.
Probably one of the better things that we had as a team was our closeness as a team among both black and white players. And I think that Joe Kapp was kind of a key to that.
The Colonel's there? I got to the team, you know, and maybe there were some parties going on with the Wall Street gang over here, and maybe some over here with the black guys, and I got invited to all of them. I said, hey, man, but why don't we have a party together? You know, I'm a Mexican, you know. I mean, I get invited to both. Why don't we all have a party? John Henderson, John. All right. Big John.
I remember when they won the 1969 NFC title game against Cleveland, and Carl was up there and waving his fist, and he said, Joe, he said, you're my brother. And he meant it, and he was crying. And Joe was crying, and he had this big... Joe had this big bottle of champagne in his, and he just smashed the champagne on his locker because that was a very important thing for a black player to tell Joe Kapp. That's why they won a lot of games with Joe playing.
I know for a fact that there is no most valuable Viking. There are only 40 most valuable Vikings. I just can't accept this. Thank you.
Joe Kapp never played again for the Minnesota Vikings. But the men he left behind went on to become one of the league's most closely knit and competitive teams. That is the legacy of this quarterback, whose habit of playing the game from his heart won him the admiration of his teammates, his fans, and even his opponents.
He was a good leader, and sometimes that makes up for skill. As far as, you know, whether the ball is a spiral or a duck, if it got there, and if the receiver knew that if he didn't catch the damn thing and it was catchable, that Joe would say something about it. I would have loved to play.